Welcome everyone to Contentment, an interactive Bible study. Whether you're joining in a small group or a youth group or Bible study or just by yourself, I hope that this will be a big blessing to you the same way it was for me. I like to study things that are relevant to me and things I'm going through. And contentment was something that I had really been struggling with. And so that's why I studied it, and I just wanted to share the things I've learned with you guys. This is going to be very interactive, even though it's a YouTube video. So be prepared to pause, be prepared to do little activities either on your paper with yourself if you're watching by yourself, or with your group if you're in a group. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you're here just to sit and watch and learn something passively, you're not in the right place. This is going to be active learning. Let's begin with a word of prayer, and then we'll get into it. Father in heaven, I thank you that we can study your word, that we can learn from it, and we can learn a lot about contentment from it. I ask that you'll be with us in our study today and guide us. And thank you for being here. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, give me just a moment. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, contentment, an interactive Bible study. We are going to be talking about the what, the how, and the why of contentment. This is all very important. So let's get into it. We're going to start with an opening activity. You're going to need a notepaper and a pencil for this video. You're going to need a Bible, especially. We're going to be studying together, or you're going to be studying yourself if you're watching this yourself. So for this activity, take that piece of notepaper and your pencil, and you're going to write down, take about 3 minutes. If you're able to time it, take about 3 minutes and write down everything in your life right now that you feel makes you unhappy or discontented. Any area where you find yourself thinking, if only blank could happen, then I'd be happy. I know you've got some. I've had quite a few in my life, especially recently. So take about 3 minutes and write those things down. You can pause the video now. Okay, I'm hoping you have your list. Keep it for later. We're going to come back to it. Let's go on to the next slide. What is contentment? When I started this study, I just went on my phone and I did a search contentment definition. And the first thing that came up was contentment. It defined contentment as a state of happiness or satisfaction. We all want that, right? I know I do. And then I thought, I should get an actual dictionary definition. So Merriam-Webster defines contentment as feeling or showing satisfaction with one's possessions, status, or situation. How many of us actually have that? We want that, but do we actually feel perfectly happy and satisfied with our possessions, our status, and our situation? Well, we're going to get into that. Here's another activity we're going to do. We just looked at a dictionary definition of contentment, but what does contentment actually look like lived out in everyday life? What you're going to do is you're going to take about 1 minute. We'll pause the video and take about 1 minute and write down a 1-sentence depiction of what you think contentment would look like in your own words. Try to make this anecdotal, like contentment is, for example, singing in prison at midnight after you've been beaten for your faith. All right, now you can't use that one because I just use it. You have to come up with your own. Okay, you can pause the video now, take a minute, write down what you think contentment looks like. All right, go ahead and share. If you're in a group, take another moment and share the different things that you came up with. When I did this with my small group, there was a lot of interesting ones. Contentment looks like saving the last piece of cake for someone else and other things like that. So it's fun to hear what people think contentment looks like around them. If you're by yourself, take a moment and comment below what you came up with for an anecdotal definition of contentment. I would love to see it. How can we be content? This is a quote that really spoke to me. It's from Ellen White. It says, true riches, true peace, true content, enduring happiness. These are found only in entire surrender to God, in perfect reconciliation to his will. I think we should read that again, okay? Make sure you're internalizing this. True riches, true peace, true content, enduring happiness. We want those things, right? Where are they found? These are found only in entire surrender to God, in perfect reconciliation to his will. All right, now comes our small group activity, where if you're in a large group Bible study or youth group, you're going to need to break into 3 smaller groups. If you're by yourself, you can just study through each of the group sections yourself, pause the video and study those and come back after you've finished, or you can pick one of them and study through it and answer the questions yourself and come back when you're done and share in the comments what you came up with. But yes, we're going to break into 3 groups. I'm assuming you're in a large group Bible study, so break into 3 groups. In each group, you're going to work together to study through and discuss the verses that are on your list. You're going to use those verses to come up with a summarized answer for each of the questions that it says on the sheet, because I had a handout. It's going to be on the screen in the next slide. So to answer each of the questions, be specific, take notes. I don't want to hear what you think the answer to the question is. I want to hear what the verses, those verses that I've given in your group specifically say in answer to those questions. And then when we're done, you're going to choose a spokesperson who's going to share their findings, share your findings with the rest of the group when we come back together. So at this time, it's going to be about 15 minutes that you'll want to spend doing this. I have the groups and their verses listed here. Each group, as you can see, gets a different set of verses, and all of these do relate in some way to contentment. It might be a stretch. You're going to have to use your brain and really think about, how does this relate to contentment? What does it tell me about contentment? Because the word contentment might not be right in the verse, but it does relate. I have studied each one of these, and you can learn some pretty cool things about contentment. So read, discuss, take notes. The questions are at the bottom that you need to be answering, a summarized answer for each of those questions, specifically coming from your set of verses. You can pause the video now and come back when you're done. All right, I'm assuming you guys have learned a lot, because I know when I went through these, I learned so much. So take a moment and get a spokesperson from each of your groups who's going to share what you guys learned. What did your set of verses say? What did it teach you about contentment? I would say to take about maybe 3 minutes per group, and you're going to be answering those 3 questions. What is the definition of contentment according to your set of verses? According to those verses, what is the reason why we're able to be content? And lastly, what are the practical steps that the verses gave for how we can be content? All right, go ahead and pause the video now and share, one person from each group, or if you're by yourself, go ahead and put it in the comments what you learned. All right, I'm going to share with you what I learned as I went through these in answer to each of those questions. What is contentment? Contentment is desiring nothing besides God and his will, which gives us a peace that allows us to rejoice and sing praises to God, even in the midst of horrible circumstances. You'll have noticed from the verses that Paul and Silas were singing in prison right after they'd been beaten. It takes a content person to do that. There was another verse that talked about the peace of God that surpasses all understanding, guarding our hearts and minds, so that we don't have to worry about tomorrow. That is contentment. That in itself is a definition of what contentment is. It's a rest, it's a peace, it's wanting only God's will to be done in your life. Why can we be content? As you studied through those verses, I'm sure you came up with a lot of things, but here's what I came up with. We can be content because we can trust that God will supply all our needs. One of the verses said, "My God shall supply all your needs according to his riches and glory by Christ Jesus." He will never leave us or forsake us. Hebrews 13, the verses from Hebrews 13, I think it was 5 through 8, verse 5 through 8 says, we can be content because he has said, "I will never leave you nor forsake you." That's giving us a reason for why we can be content. It's because we have Jesus always with us. And if he will never leave us or forsake us, and as Romans 8 says, nothing can separate us from his love, then we truly won't want anything more. When we have him, we want for nothing. We lack for nothing because he is everything that we need. And lastly, how can we be content? What were some of the practical steps that you learned? Here's what I learned. We can be content by trusting in the Lord and not worrying. We need to let go of all of those trying to figure out tomorrow. One of the verses says, sufficient for today is the trouble therein. Stop worrying about tomorrow. God's got it in his hands. We can be content by seeking God's kingdom and delighting in him. Again, that idea that when we have him, we have everything we need. We can be content. One of the verses says, rejoice in the Lord always. And we can give thanks in everything. Because truly, if nothing is separating us from his love, then no circumstance that comes into our lives is bad for us. God's going to use it for some sort of good, so we can thank him for it. We can pray for his will over our own. One of the verses talked about Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane and the way that he prayed when he was faced with a cruel and horrible death. And what did he say? Not my will, but thy will be done. And those are all the things that we can do as well that will lead to contentment in our lives. My personal experience, as I said, I don't share sermons or studies on anything that isn't touching my life directly. And I started this study, I studied it all through the month of January because I was struggling with it. Ever since last November, I guess it was, work has been very challenging. My job as a teacher is a beautiful job, but it's very difficult as well, as any other teacher out there will relate to me. But I really started struggling with contentment, being happy with where I was and what I was doing each day. And it's been a difficult year with everything going on in the world. I've lost some friends suddenly to death, very unexpected death over the course of the last year. And all of those things just shook my world a little bit and made me like, I don't feel happy. I started to not feel happy, and I didn't like it because I want to love life. I want to be happy. And part of me was like, well, maybe if this would just change, kind of like we did in our beginning exercise, if I could just do blank, or blank could just change in my life, then I would be happy. And I started to realize, you know what? I don't know if my circumstances changing is going to actually make me happy. Maybe it's not my circumstances that is the problem. Maybe it's me. And so I started this study, and I learned so much about contentment. And I want to share with you a thought that came to me through this study. And that is that contentment comes not when your circumstances have changed, but when your attitude towards them changes. When you choose to live at the center of God's will, seeking his happiness. Again, so many times I want to be happy. I want to be happy. What is going to make God happy? When we live to please him and do his will, first and foremost, we're seeking his happiness. And that will help us to find joy in whatever each day brings. Now, this isn't easy to do, I can tell you by personal experience, but recognizing it and starting to try to live it out makes a big difference. Here's a quote from Ellen White, again, second volume of the Testimonies. It says, "You have not been happy." How many can relate? You have not been happy. Why? Because you have been seeking after happiness. Okay, this is talking directly to me, I felt like when I read this. You have been seeking after happiness. That's what we should be doing, right? No, it says, this is not profitable business. When you seek earnestly to do your duty and arouse yourself to minister unto others, then you will find rest of spirit. Your mind dwells upon yourself. How many of us struggle with that? It needs instead to be drawn away from yourself by seeking to lighten the cares of others. And in making them happy, you will find happiness and cheerfulness of spirit. My friends, this right here is your recipe for happiness and contentment. If we follow this, you're going to have that contentment and peace in your life. So if you get nothing else out of this study and out of the interactive activities and studies that you did in your groups or on your own, I want you to remember one thing, and that is that the happiest place to be is at the center of God's will for you. Are you living where he wants you to be right here, right now? Are you doing what he wants you to do? Are you seeking to please him in your life right now? If you are, then it doesn't matter if your job is challenging. It doesn't matter if you're single. It doesn't matter if you don't have the car you want or you don't have this or that. none of those things would actually make you happy. The only thing that is making you happy is being at the center of God's will. And if the answer to that is no, that you're not living in the center of His will right now, then that's the thing that you need to change. That's the thing you need to go on your knees about and pray and ask Him, how can I get back where you want me to be? How can I find that contentment and happiness in you? And knowing that when I have you, I have everything that I need. When I have you, I know I can trust that you will supply my needs, that you will supply the things I want if they're good for me, that you will not allow anything, circumstance or any type of bad thing even in my life that won't be for my good. So I hope that you've gained this. If you forget everything else in the study, I hope that this sticks with you. The happiest place to be is at the center of God's will for you. So we're going to go back now. This is our closing reflection. Go back to that list that you made in the beginning of the things that you think make you unhappy or discontented, that you wish could change in your life. Go back to that. And in light of everything you've learned, I want you to take maybe about 3 minutes, pause the video, and prayerfully write down next to each one of them a reason why you can be thankful for it. Why is God allowing this in your life right now? Are you discontented about it because it's not at the center of God's will for you? And if so, what can you do about it? Are you discontented simply because you're restless and unhappy about it and you're not surrendering to His will? What can you thank God for about that thing in your life right now? Why might He have allowed it? So pause the video now and write those down. All right. In closing, I'd like to say a word of prayer. I hope that this has been really beneficial for you, whether you were by yourself watching this and doing the activities or in a larger group setting. I pray that you've learned a lot and that this will stick with you and continue to shape how you approach life and how you approach everything that comes your way each day. Let's pray. Father in heaven, we thank you so much that you supply all our needs, that you love us so much that when we have you, we don't have to want for anything else, because we can trust that you'll take care of everything, that you won't bring any circumstance into our life that would not be for our good, that would not be for our growth. Help us to surrender now. If we have any areas in our lives right now that are outside of your will for us, I pray that you'll convict us right now and that we will take this time right here, right now, to surrender those to you and to commit to following your will and your plan for our lives. Thank you so much for your love. We ask that we can share that love with others, and we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless.